One of the best things about watching movies is how they can take us on adventures that we never thought possible. But what happens when those amazing stories actually happen? While they might seem too out there to be true, there are in fact tons of movies that have been made inspired by real-life events. Because even though fictional stories can take us places we never imagined, sometimes the truth is still so much stranger than fiction. Keep watching to find out which unbelievable movies were actually based on true events. We couldn't start this video off without any movie other than the absolutely amazing Catch Me If You Can. While it would be an awesome movie-going experience even if it hadn't been based on a true story, the fact that the genius con artist Frank Abagnale Jr. is a real person makes it all the more thrilling. The unbelievable story follows Abagnale as he goes from a teenage scammer to a full-blown forger who changes his identity over and over again to transform himself from a teacher to a doctor to a commercial airline pilot, all before he was 21 years old. Abagnale eventually caught the eye of an FBI agent, played by Tom Hanks, who dedicated his life to finding and taking him down during those wild 6 years. It's safe to say that when it came out, Hustlers made a huge splash, and not just because it featured Jennifer Lopez leading an all-star cast of awesomely memorable women and a few unforgettable cameos. Oh no. The wildest thing about this story of a group of exotic dancers who develop a scheme to make as much money off of their high-rolling Wall Street clients as they possibly could was that it all actually happened. Well, we're sure some parts of it were exaggerated for the sake of an entertaining movie, but the story of Ramona Vega, though of course her name had been changed, and the women that she took under her wing is all very much the truth. It seems that Leonardo Dicaprio has a bit of a knack for tackling real-life stories and characters, as he will pop up in this video more than once. First, we talked about him in the unbeatable Catch Me If You Can, but we could not go on without bringing up another 5-word title about a non-fiction character, The Wolf of Wall Street. In one of his most beloved roles ever, DiCaprio takes on the despicably infamous Wall Street trader Jordan Belfort. Based off of Belfort's own autobiography, DiCaprio and director Martin Scorsese aim to show just how over-the-top and filled with excess Belfort's life and the lives of many others who operate within that world really are. While there have been many biopics in movie history, there has never been one quite like Harriet. Harriet tells the remarkable true story of the heroic Harriet Tubman, a real-life enslaved woman who not only escaped her own horrific conditions, but helped hundreds of other enslaved people to their freedom using the Underground Railroad. There are some fictional heroes who we love to see save the day, but the fact that Harriet and other abolitionists like her actually lived in the real world makes her story all the more incredible. As an individual, she personally freed over 70 people, and later came back as a Union spy during the Civil War, where she led a troop of 150 black soldiers who altogether freed an additional 700 people from enslavement. There was no better director out there to make a film version of the Bling Ring robberies than Sofia Coppola. The story is now infamous and totally true. A group of bored, wealthy Calabasas teens decided to start robbing the homes of some of the most famous celebrities in the world, like Paris Hilton, Lindsay Lohan, and Orlando Bloom. Starring Emma Watson as reality TV star and Ring Bling member Alexis Nares, whose name in the film is Nikki, Coppola perfectly captures this strange and perfectly Hollywood story. Sometimes it's hard to believe that some people in this world are just good, through and through. And generally, we tend to be pretty skeptical of people who might appear that way, which is exactly where A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, the movie, all about children's TV icon Mr. Rogers, starts off. When a skeptical journalist is hired to do a profile on Fred Rogers, we are right there with him in believing that there just has to be something wrong with this guy. But the most amazing thing about Fred, and the movie made about him, is that he really wasn't hiding some sort of dark ulterior motive. In this day and age, one of the most unbelievable things about Mr. Rogers is that he was exactly the person who he showed to the world and genuinely wanted to make people happy. In the genre of crime movies, there's a type of story that's been told over and over again. It usually goes, someone's child goes missing, the police aren't doing enough to satisfy the parent, so the parent decides to take matters into their own hands and solve the crime or find their child themselves. It's a kind of remarkable story, and one that we hope any parent would do for their child. But in the case of the Netflix film Lost Girls, it's actually true. Lost Girls tells the story of Mary Gilbert, a mom of 4 whose daughter Shannon went missing in 2010 in Long Island. While it's not a happy story, the relentlessness in which Mary sought to find her daughter is incredible and inspiring. This next entry is actually a TV series and not a film, but it deserves a spot on this list for how unbelievable the true life story actually is, which is probably why the name of the show is Unbelievable. It follows the life of a young woman who experienced a terrible sexual assault, but because of her demeanor, wasn't believed by anyone around her. We don't want to give too much away, but as the investigation grows and takes on new forms, the story gets more and more, well, unbelievable. Hey look, it's Leonardo Dicaprio again, this time in The Basketball Diaries, one of his most achingly beautiful and truly heartbreaking performances ever. The movie is based on the real-life retelling of the poet Jim Carroll's teenage diaries, as he went from rising basketball star to heroin addict. It's a devastating movie, and definitely not for the faint of heart. If you've been hearing the name Chloe Zhao a lot lately, it's probably because of her new film Nomadland, which is gaining a ton of accolades from anyone who was lucky enough to see it yet. Oh yeah, she's also directing the upcoming Marvel movie, Eternals, but she should be just as well known for her previous film, The Rider. The Rider is remarkable because not only is it a true story, it's played out by all of the people who lived that story for real. That's right, Zhao's cast is full of non-actors, all stepping in to dramatize the real-life events that changed their lives, and the result is truly remarkable. It follows a former rodeo star named Brady Jandreau, who suffered severe brain damage during a terrible accident as he finds his footing in his new life and makes his way back into the saddle. Seriously, don't miss this movie. There is nothing else quite like it. If there was ever a filmmaker that inspired Tim Burton, it is without a doubt the B-movie master Ed Wood. In fact, Burton was such a big fan of Wood that he went on to make a biopic about him, starring who else but Johnny Depp as the not-so-iconic director. Ed Wood, the movie, is the perfect homage to Ed Wood, the man, as weird and out of the ordinary as the director himself would have wanted. Like the title suggests, Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile is not a sequel to A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. While they are both movies about real-life men, these two could not be further apart. Extremely Wicked tells the story of the trial of one of the most notorious serial killers of all time, Ted Bundy, except it does something a little different. It shows us the story through the eyes of Bundy's girlfriend Elizabeth, who was in a relationship with Bundy for 6 years. While Bundy's story has been told numerous times by now, it's never been told quite like this. And with Zac Efron in the lead role, it's a whole other look as just how he got away with so much of what he did. Another genre movie that has been done just about every which way has got to be the war epic. We have hundreds of films based in many different conflicts, but two of the most widely covered are definitely World War I and World War II. Sometimes a movie will create a fictional character to follow within the context of these wars, like Saving Private Ryan, but we think it's even more remarkable when the movie is based on a real event, like Dunkirk. Set during the absolutely miraculous evacuation of thousands of Allied soldiers on the beach of Dunkirk, the movie really is vastly different than any other war film that we've ever seen before, and all the more impactful because of the fact that it really happened. American Hustle features one of the most all-star casts of the early 2010s. The movie stars Christian Bale, Jennifer Lawrence, Amy Adams, Bradley Cooper, and Jeremy Renner, which was enough information alone to draw in huge audiences when it was released. Once the movie got started, however, it was the fact that this larger-than-life crime story was actually based on true events that kept us glued to our seats the whole time. All about the famed FBI abscam operation, in which two con artists, played by Bale and Adams, set about to take down some very high-profile politicians. American Hustle delivers not only with its cast, but with its amazing story as well. Sometimes an event happens that is so monumental that it completely shakes the world around it. This is the base of the 90s club kid film Party Monster, based on the book Disco Bloodbath by James St. James. Set in the world of the 1990s club scene, the story follows the drug-fueled life of party promoter Michael Allig, who went from beloved member of the scene to checking into a rehab facility before being convicted of ending the life of fellow club kid Angel Melendez over a drug debt. Allig would go on to spend 17 years in prison for the crime, and in the film is played by Macaulay Culkin, in his furthest departure from his child star status yet. It's a wild movie based on some seriously shocking real-world events, and is a staple for anyone invested in delving into this iconic moment in history. If there is one thing in this life that we hope we never have to do, It's cut off our own arm with a dull Swiss Army knife. And while that might sound like something out of the, 475th Saw sequel, it's actually from the 2010 film 127 Hours, which was remarkably based on the real-life adventure of a young man named Aaron Ralston. Ralston was a very experienced wilderness explorer who found himself trapped in the most terrifying of situations, falling inside a crack in a Utah canyon, miles away from another living soul, and with a boulder crushing his arm. The 127 hours in the title referred to just how long Aaron was able to survive before he had to commit one of the bravest and most stomach-churning acts in order to make it out alive. We can't help but love a down-and-out sports drama, and lucky for us, there is no shortage of them in Hollywood. But what sets Moneyball apart is the fact that it's based on a true story, and a really unexpected one at that. Based on the book Moneyball, The Art of Winning, An Unfair Game, the movie tells the story of Billy Beane, the general manager of the Oakland A's baseball team, as he tries to draft a winning team with almost no money or resources. He teams up with Peter Brand, who uses a computer program to analyze the statistics of a bunch of cast-off players in order to build a team that can actually win. While it might sound a bit dry here, Moneyball is anything but when it plays out on the big screen. There is no one who makes a true crime movie or TV series quite like David Fincher, and 2007's Zodiac might be one of his finest. The sprawling film tracks the manhunt for the infamous Zodiac killer, who was active in the San Francisco Bay Area during the 1960s and 70s. It features an all-star cast including Jake Gyllenhaal, Robert Downey Jr., and Mark Ruffalo, and the decade-long game of cat and mouse that went on between the Zodiac and the San Francisco police. One of the most chilling aspects of the entire thing is that it does not end with a satisfying conclusion, with the Zodiac remaining at large long after he stopped playing his horrific game. Another movie that we just couldn't make this video without is, of course, the one and only Erin Brockovich. While it might be more famous these days for Julia Roberts' awesome and award-winning performance, we think the fact that Brockovich is a real person makes it so much better. It is yet another story about how one very determined person can and will make a difference in this world, and it does so while being just such a fun movie to watch. Brockovich was absolutely set on making the life for herself that she believed in, and watching her go from out of work to legal aid to defender of an entire town is one of the best journeys in movie history. While the band Stillwater might not exist in real life, Cameron Crowe's experiences of touring with 1970s rock bands as a journalist for Rolling Stone magazine were very real, and are exactly what inspired the cult classic movie Almost Famous. Crowe, who wrote and directed the film, spent his teenage years on tour with some of the most legendary bands of all time, from Led Zeppelin to the Eagles to Leonard Skinner to the Allman Brothers Band, and later on would blend all of those experiences into the script for one of Crowe's most beloved films. There is no doubt that, if Crowe had not have lived this extraordinary life, the movie would never have felt so personal, and the characters so completely realized. Everything about Goodfellas has become iconic in today's pop culture, from the all-star cast to the script to Martin Scorsese's signature direction. There is no doubt that Goodfellas is one of the most beloved and best-known movies ever made. But what we had no idea of was that it was actually based on a true story. In fact, the script was adapted from a non-fiction book called Wise Guy. The story follows mobster Henry Hill, played by Ray Liotta, as he gets pulled deeper and deeper into the world of organized crime, a world which he had once desperately desired to be a part of. With Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci giving some of the best performances of their careers, Goodfellas is one of the original mob movies and definitely one of the best. Alcatraz is such a notorious prison that it's inspired tons of movies, stories, and even the fictional Azkaban prison from the Harry Potter franchise. One of the most famous aspects of this terrible place is how completely inescapable it is, which makes the fact that the 1979 classic Escape from Alcatraz is based on a true story even more amazing. While there is still some dispute about how successful the escape mission actually was, this Clint Eastwood film tries to tell the story as truthfully as possible and really succeeds in creating a truly mesmerizing experience. Eastwood and two other men conceive of an ambitious and daring plot to find their freedom, and they actually triumph. Schindler's List is one of those movies that will live forever on top 100 lists for the rest of time. There's no denying that it is an incredible movie, and the fact that it went on to win Best Director and Best Picture at the Academy Awards that year definitely says something about its impact. It features career-defining performances from Liam Neeson and Ralph Fiennes, and will remain one of Steven Spielberg's best films forever. But the fact that it's based off of a true story is what really brings home the film's message. The story of the Nazi businessman Oskar Schindler, who decided to fight on the side of good rather than evil, and helped over 1,000 Jewish people escape from a prison camp, is just another example that some of the best stories are those that happen for real. Girl Interrupted is credited for many things, for making Angelina Jolie a bona fide movie star as an Oscar winner, and for bringing together one of the most powerful casts of women at the time. But none of this would have happened if not for the real-life story of the film's protagonist, Susanna Kaysen. The film was actually based off of her best-selling memoir, also titled Girl Interrupted, which she wrote about her experiences of struggling with borderline personality disorder and being sent to a psychiatric hospital. Susanna spent 2 years at the hospital, and in that time met Lisa, a diagnosed sociopath and long-term patient who became her close friend. Finally, our last movie on this list is based on one of the oldest and most remarkable true stories of all time. While 300 might seem like a festival of stunning CGI and abdominal muscles, we can't forget that it's actually just a retelling of the Spartan king Leonidas and the 300 men he led against the Persians in the Battle of Thermopylae in 480 BC. This epic tale of the war between Greece and Persia, modern-day Iran, is not only epic because of the way that it was interpreted in the film, but because of the real history behind it. Some of those movies are so outrageous that it's hard to imagine them happening to anyone in real life. What do you think of this video? Did we leave out any epic true stories that we've just gotta know about? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to hit subscribe to keep up to date with all the latest videos from ScreenRant.